I want to go over state program for Baylor baseball since their season has been completed, and yes, they are missing the Big 12 tournament for the second straight year. It is disappointing. I will say injuries were part of a factor. They lost some players early on for the season, and some of those guys, if not all those guys, would be starters, so they would have helped. And another part of it is the pitching that has to improve. And I know they had some young guys, but they hit the wall at a bad time. When I go over the overall record, it's 22-31 this year, less losses than a year ago, but 10-20 in the conference. What's the kicker is they were 9-7 at one point in the Big 12. Guess how many games they only won after that? One. And that was this past weekend against UCF. And when you look at the Big 12 standings, if Baylor baseball would have won 3 more games in the Big 12, they would have made the Big 12 tournament. Yes, I'm saying that because Texas Tech did have a game canceled against Oklahoma State due to weather, and I don't know why Oklahoma State did not decide to do a doubleheader on a Saturday when the next day was the weather was going to be bad. And that was the same weekend Baylor played Oklahoma in Norman, and they decided, you know what, after a Friday game, we'll play 2 games on Saturday. I don't know what they were thinking. So, and there were some games for Baylor baseball in the Big 12 that got away from them, like Houston. They lost all 3 series games, and Houston's one of the worst teams in the Big 12. Just right ahead BYU. And Baylor swept BYU, but what's crazy is Baylor lost to Houston, and 2 of those games were close. 4-3 and 3-2. But that was the first conference series of the year. But just imagine if Baylor baseball would have won both of those games, they would be in much better position for the Big 12. And yes, they would still technically miss it. But if all the games were played and that Texas Tech game didn't happen, cancellation didn't happen, Baylor baseball would be in the tournament. And they did lose to Texas Tech in the first game 2-0, but they won the other 2 games. So Texas Tech's going to the Big 12 tournament despite winning the series. Losing the series to Baylor. And same thing goes for Cincinnati. First game, Baylor baseball lost 8-3, but they won the other 2 games. And they did beat Texas 4-3 in 11 innings in that first game in Austin. Obviously, the Kansas second game was 8-4 loss, but the last game was an 8-inning game. It was 12-2. So if Baylor would have beat West Virginia at West Virginia, and it was a 5-2 loss, but you get the point. And they blew a game against TCU in 11 innings in the second game, 9-7. I'm just listening to some, and in the third game against TCU, they were down too early, but they came back to only lose 10-6. Just like today against UCF, they were down 6-0, but they came back to lose 10-8. And they barely lost the first game of the series against UCF, 6-4 in the first game of a doubleheader. So you get the whole point. There, and when you look at the numbers, it's the bullpen. The pitching's the whole problem, part of the problem. Besides the injuries. And I'm not just talking about starting pitching either. I'm talking about bullpen. Because you got to have guys that are good in the bullpen. I know some of those guys were experienced, but they didn't do good enough. And while the other younger guys, they were doing good for a little bit, but then they hit the wall. So something's got to change. And I'm sure there are player interviews going on. It possibly might have happened because this week, because the TCU game got in the midweek got canceled. And some people may say TCU wanted to avoid a midweek loss. But also, did you know a TCU baseball player lost his mom due to colon cancer? And they had a funeral for her. And the TCU players, they were there to support their teammate. So, I'm just pointing that out. And you know the scholarship limit is 11.7, but still, maybe one day that changes. But in the meantime, you gotta find a way to win games. And Baylor baseball does have 16 players coming in next year, and 8 positional players, 7 pitchers, and a two-way player, as in like a player. I mean, the pitcher and a catcher. So how many seniors does Baylor baseball have? And one of those guys that was out for the year, he got carted off the field early on in the year, so he's getting a medical red shirt. So thank goodness he's going to be back. And I think that's Hunter Simmons, but I could totally be wrong about that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 seniors on the roster, and we all know that the roster is cut to 40 players before the spring. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens, especially like with the transfer portal. Maybe some players are going to be told to leave, like especially those guys that did not make the cut for the roster for the spring. And I know some of those season-ending injury guys would have been starters. So I think Baylor baseball would have won more games. I really do think. Yeah, and it was Hunter Simmons with that season-ending injury, by the way. And it happened against Indiana. So, yeah. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Clearly, something's not working in these first 2 years. And I know Mitch Thompson's trying to rebuild this program, and I'm going to give him another year. But next year's a big year for him because he needs to find a way to get to the Big 12 tournament next year. And I would not be shocked if there are some staff changes after this season, because something needs to happen. I mean, to fix things. And I'm not going to say Mitch Thompson needs to be fired after this year, but we'll wait and see what happens. But my guess is he's going to come back for another year and maybe even a year after that. But you get the whole point here and all this. So, and they're going to have to address the transport. And I would dare to say focus more on the pitching. And that was always the concern going into this year anyway, was the pitch. So, yeah, because of the young guys and the older guys, and some of those stars did not have good showings, while other guys, they had a good showing, but they didn't do enough to win, whether it's offense or the pitching or a little bit of both. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens from here. So anyways, if you like this content, hit the like and subscribe button, and see you guys later on the road to 700 subscribers. Of course, the ultimate goal is 1,000 or more. So make money out this. Of course, liking the video, comment the video really helps YouTube algorithm so more people can see it. Sharing the video does help as well so more people could watch. And if you're watching and subscribe, hit subscribe button, free the notification bell as well. And we'll wait and see what the Big 12 slate looks like for next year, especially with Texas and Oklahoma going to be gone to the SEC, while Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State are coming into the Big 12 next year. And what's even worse about the record, they only won 2 games against RPI top 50 teams. That's not good. Something has to change, and we all know it.